Hello friends, happy 420 and welcome to episode 123 of the Noclip podcast. We are fresh and fancy free from our filming in Los Angeles, the city of angels, the city of actors. And that's who we were talking to, the folks, the cast, and some of the crew behind the wonderful Sam Barlow Immortality, which we talked a lot about last year. I got in yesterday afternoon because I also, we moved slightly further north again up to Petaluma in Sonoma County from Novato here in Marin County. So slightly further away from San Francisco into the belly of GameSpot and Giant Bomb lore, really, in Sonoma County. So I had to drive back extra early to get back to help my wife move some of that slime. Jeremy Jane, how did you get back from the wonderful City of Angels?
It was good. They were doing a lot of construction on the 5 both ways, so that was
awesome.
Obviously my favorite place to sit in single-lane traffic is in the hot center of California, where they...
Can you explain, just for people who aren't from California, can you explain what Highway 5 is?
Yeah, I sort of feel like the quintessential Highway 5 experience is Coalinga, which is dead center. It's both psychologically and also literally the heart of the 5 experience, because it is not only the center of California in that it is hot and dry and the sun is beating down on you in it's like a Steinbeck novel out there, but also there is a place, Harris Ranch, colloquially known as Cowschwitz, which is a place that produces 150 million pounds of beef. I Googled it because I was stuck in traffic and it smelled like shit.
They've got good 5G out there. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, they got one bar out there, so you can look up depressing Wikipedias. But
you can smell it though, right?
Yeah, the only other notable thing about the checkout for my Airbnb was I was cleaning up and I busted my thumb on a bean can, so I was pouring blood, and the owner of the Airbnb...
That explains that 1-star review. Thanks very much.
So the owner of the Airbnb came out to say goodbye, and I had like a huge bloody rag on my hand, and I was like waving goodbye, looking horribly disheveled. So...
She's probably used to actors being there, punching mirrors and things.
That's true. I'm taxi driver too. I'm up for the role, so I had to get in character.
Frank Howley, you didn't take a taxi home, but you did drive home as well.
I did.
Because you live, we all drove home, but you drove home with it taking 7 hours. How was your trip back? And tell us about pulling out of our ridiculous mansion.
No, it's so funny. Like, I used to drive up in LA all the time, and the only thing that stressed me out was just driving in the city and parking and stuff like that. And the mansion that we filmed at was such an intense, like, it felt like doing one of those jumps in Dark Souls where if you see an item, you have to like dodge roll and jump at the right moment, otherwise you'll fall. So the place we shot off is off like a major street in Hollywood.
Off Sunset Boulevard. I think was that Sunset?
Yeah.
Boulevard. It was part of Sunset Boulevard. Yeah.
So it's which is a main road where cars are going, 40 miles per hour. 50, like they can go very fast. So you have to drive, and all of a sudden there's the house, and you have to do like a like a 100-degree turn.
It's a 100-degree turn. It's a gate, and also there is no space between the gate and the road. So it's not like you can like stick your nose in and other people can go past. And also the gate was like, we had to press a button, but you couldn't see the other side of the gate from inside of the building either. So there was no way of like judging if there was someone outside who needed to come in. So and then also all the people who were coming, this is all Frank's problem, is all the actors and crew that were coming to be interviewed, like we didn't have any of their numbers. They had our numbers. So Frank, I'm guessing, were you getting like panicked phone calls every hour when somebody was like, how the fuck do I get in here?
And it's so hard to read because there's so many robocalls I get on a daily basis that like by default, I have my phone set to like, if you're not in my contacts, I get no notifications. But
Me
like
too.
when I on days like this where it's like, oh, people might have to contact me, I have to leave it on. So it's terrifying because like every 30 minutes, it's like, is this a scam call or not? It's harder because I live in SoCal. So it's like, well, this could be someone in LA who lives in LA.
Oh, of course. All mine come from Virginia numbers because I got my phone when I was over in the East Coast.
So I got everyone except one person I didn't pick up because I thought it was a robocall. And then we got text messages a few minutes later and I felt bad because they were stuck in that like pivot outside the gate for maybe
Honk,
4 minutes.
honk, honk,
But as I
honk.
was, it was you would always hear that, and then but as I was talking to all the actors, it was like everyone's used to it. That's LA, so people are used to it. But it's just like that gives me my biggest panic. And then the extra fun was like still parking and navigating. I felt like a valet driver at one point. I got to drive one of their cars. And
Oh,
be
you
like,
did?
yeah,
Did
like,
you?
I did very fancy 3-point term. In my head, I'm like, see, this is where being a gamer pays off. So yeah, it was very cool. That's just the outside. The inside itself is insane. We shared some photos of that, but yeah, Tuesday was very thrilling.
Yeah, check them out. All the shots are up on a bunch of places. We put some on Twitter. The Noclip Discord, I got a bunch of them. Put up a Reddit thread this morning. Cleaned up the Noclip Reddit. I didn't know you could change the names. I think they only turned that on maybe like a year or two ago. But I remember years ago trying to because the original Noclip Reddit was made by fans, and I guess they went off of what the title of the first launch video was, which was Noclip Game Docs Powered by You. That's what we did back in 2006. We were so cool back in 2016. So that's what it was called, and that's what the title was forever. And I was pretty sure I googled it a lot, and they were like, "There's no way of doing this because it's basically people would sell subreddits if they could change the fucking titles and all that sort of stuff." But no, I googled it again because I was annoyed last night. Every time I went to the Reddit, I'd be pissed off seeing that for 6 years. And then, no offense to the folks, I'd rather be lurking and all those folks who made that. I don't know who made it originally, but all the mods over there, thank you so much. But it would always annoy me. And then I found some YouTube video and they're like, "Oh no, it's a setting right here." And even then I didn't believe it. I was like, this is a piss take YouTube video. You can't really do that. And I went into mod tools and it was right there. I was like, oh, I can just delete it. Okay. And then I changed a bunch of colors and stuff. And then I was like, I use Reddit every day. Why don't we use the Noclip Reddit much? So posted some pictures up there. But yes, we rented this place. I cannot overestimate how inexpensive. I mean, for LA, it was I think it was 94 or 96 bucks an hour, which in LA, I think the place we shot the Heart Machine stuff was 70 an hour. But we are often looking at places that are 200 an hour. And because you just have to pay it, especially if it's centrally located, if it's got parking, all this sort of stuff. This was a mansion, which I don't think I realized people lived upstairs in it until we were there a while.
Yeah.
And they kept coming down to use the very ornate microwave.
Yeah. During an interview, you would just hear beep, beep.
Yeah, that one time that happened. That was near the end.
Yeah.
And I was like, if this happened in the first hour, I probably would have said something. But in fairness, we have been using filming in your kitchen area for 8 hours, and you can make this burrito if you want, perhaps. But yeah, can you explain, Jeremy, the fucking vibe of this nightmare beautiful place?
Yeah, so it was to give you an idea, it was used for one of the accolades that was on the description for the site was that it was used in a Wiz Khalifa music video, which is totally believable because as Danny and I were first exploring the space, we went upstairs and looked down and there was a bunch of fake $100 bills stuck in the chandelier.
There was, I forgot about that.
So clearly somebody went up there and made it rain on everybody fake $100 bills because they're filming.
Which, just to quickly interject, that seems particularly funny because I'm pretty sure if it's a Wiz Khalifa video on this Our Lord's Day 420, I'm pretty sure there was a lot of weed being smoking. The amount of, I had to buy insurance for this shoot, and the amount of questions that were about, you're not going to smoke weed, right? And nobody involved has ever looked at weed before, right? And I was thinking about Wiz Khalifa, and I was like, they probably just didn't insure it, maybe.
Yeah, or they just aired they said no on everything, and then just opened all the windows.
Got a towel.
Yeah, when you're in college and you're TA is gonna, or not TA, dorm, whatever they call them. RA.
I'm drinking out of a Solo cup right now.
There you
don't
go,
have to
dude.
tell me
I'm gonna
about
throw
it.
a little ping pong ball through my webcam at you.
Ooh.
Yeah, it went in. But yeah, this place was chandeliers, dark wood, tables that you would eat an estranged dinner across from your rich parents at. It was we talked to the production designer toward the end, and the term we came up with is that it was Lynchbrickian. It was both Lynchian and Kubrickian.
Well, that's a good point. Is that this house was very strange. If it was its own house, I think that's weird. If it was a party house that was associated with a much bigger mansion, it would make a bit more sense because it was kind of just one really big room.
Yeah.
But the four corners of the room were differently themed. So one of them was a sort of a brownish table area. One was a green, and this is all 19th century looking shit, early 20th century, kind of faux riche gauche looking stuff. Lots of like fabrics and long big paintings and long fabrics and stuff. One was like a green sofa area. Then it was like a very blue, almost felt 50s or 40s kitchen area. Then the middle area was like just beautiful. So basically, it was like having 5 sets, which is perfect for us.
Yeah, especially because we're usually in conference rooms. Usually we have to find what's the best corner of a conference room. And it's like, oh, this one's like a little less gray than the other one.
Or the least worst.
Yeah, exactly. This was like an embarrassment of riches. I can never go back to conference rooms. I hope you know that.
Dude, it was so cool seeing everyone else's reaction. Like, everyone would come in, like, Manon came in and was like, whoa, she was like, I thought we were going to film in, like, a conference room or something, or, and then, like, even the production designer came in, because I kind of picked it out, because I was like, it looks a little bit like the third movie in Immortality. If you haven't played Immortality, it's an FMV game, basically. You're scrubbing through footage, and but it's, like, super artfully shot, and it's based around 3 different movies. One's a sort of a, what would you call it? Was it a 20s Giallo movie? Or I guess Giallo is later, but a 20s Italian movie, and then a
70s hard-boiled detective, kind of Dirty Harry movie.
Yes, and then the last one's like a 90s kind of late 90s, early aughts, whatever, drama.
Yeah.
And that one, it kind of looked a little bit about that, but it did have little parts of Ambrosio as well, they were saying, because like there was all these like fake Renaissance sculptures and stuff and paintings and things.
Yeah, a lot of weird bronze figurines. Frank and I were talking about how the 2 sort of genres of bronze figurine were like woman with her breasts out and like scary little baby. And it's a very it's odd that like that's what the like gauche rich people decorations are, is like scary baby and sexy woman.
Yeah, where are the lads? I guess they have busts of, like, there was no busts of dudes there.
True.
But like, you're right. I guess that's just like creation and life, right? Mother is God and babies are
terrifying.
Cute. I don't know. Yeah. Babies are terrifying. Fucking weird cherubs. So yeah, we have it's just like, I guessing an embarrassment of riches in terms of shots for you, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, it was so fun. I like even towards the end of the day, it was a really long shoot day because we had a lot of people to talk to, and
sorry we didn't get a break. That was not my plan.
No, it's all right. I'd rather just like push through. I am used to it. It honestly felt like being back in film school when you have one day to film in like the abandoned parking garage before anyone catches you, and you're like, dude, we just gotta nail out, like, come on, we just gotta push through and get like a few more shots.
Losing life.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it was nice. I also like we were talking before the pod, I got to like change up the framing of some of the shots a little bit and have a little more headroom, because usually in conference rooms or like, in dev studios, there's usually not a bunch of interesting things in the backdrop. So you kind of try to constrain the shot to like a really tight shot, like a more traditional talking head shot you'd see in like a Netflix documentary, where they're not in like a space that's really fascinating and has depth and angles and stuff. So you're just trying to like constrain the angles or the composition as much as possible. But this was like, just throw it wide, and you got like a painting of a dude with his 18 Dobermans in the background, and like it was so cool.
Yeah, because like one of the problems I've learned now since doing a lot of shooting here in the studio is just trying not to have the drop ceiling in a shot, because drop ceilings just look terrible.
Yeah.
Like it's just a bunch of squares, these little fucking fireproof styrofoam squares, and it just throws off angles. It just gives you this weird mesh above the shot that like makes that imposes some sort of like visual noise on the rest of the angles in the shot. It just fucks everything. So but then to get rid of them, you can't really have much of a background, or if you do, you have to like angle a certain. So yeah, it was funny watching like some of the shots you had that were just like, we actually decided to, in the moment, have 3 of them do the exact same shot, which we never do in studios because it will look like we're replacing them. But then we thought it would be funny with the, not to spoil Immortality, but to have the whole like, and then replace the shot thing happen with them. So I think that'll be quite interesting.
Yeah. We also got to have them play the game, which is one of the most interesting things we've ever shot for a doc. I like, when we talked about that, I kind of thought it would be like a 10-minute thing, and they like, I didn't know if they'd be super into it or if it'd be kind of weird for them, especially on camera. Like, it's one thing if they're like, let's like check out the game we worked on or whatever, but I feel like they're so used to being on camera, but still there's something where it's like you want to be authentic, but then they're like looking at themselves and you get self-conscious, and they're like, how do I react to, I don't want to be like overly praising myself and be like, look how good I am. But it was so fun. They were like, it was just like them talking shop about their acting chops and being like, oh my god, in this scene you were like, this was like total Clint Eastwood, and like it was so fun. That went on for a while too.
It did way longer than I thought.
Yeah, I don't know
was the
how we're
same
gonna
as
cut
you.
that up, but it was awesome.
Yeah, we might just pull bits and bobs out of it. I was thinking that might be a cool. Me and Frank were talking about maybe doing that as a like the full cut or close to a full cut, being like a patron exclusive that we do or something.
Definitely.
Because it is super cool. We were recording the gameplay on the Mac at the time as well. So yeah, we'll have to do something with that. But Frank, what was it like for you? So Frank came up obviously, and it was cool to have you there. I think the last shoot you were on, the only other shoot was the Heart Machine and the Bloodborne PSX stuff. That day. What was it like for you? What was there? Because there was like a green room outdoors. People were hanging out. It seemed like they all get along, and like they hadn't seen. Some of them had seen each other pretty. It sounds like Charlotte and Manon hang out a bit, which is kind of thematically funny. But it sounds like the rest of them, some of them hadn't seen each other in a while, so it was like a little get together for them.
Yeah, because even what we learned is like they treated each, and this will be in the documentary, but like they treated each film in the game as its own film shoot. So some actors aren't in the other movies. So I think Tasha, I don't think met Ty. I can't remember, or like maybe they'd seen each other a few times, but it's like they only saw them on that production, which at this point was a year and a half ago or something. But like
almost 2 years ago now. It was like summer of 2021 they filmed it.
So it felt so it was like a film production they all hung out at, and then they wrapped, and then they said like also I can't remember if they had time for wrap parties or stuff like that. So it's like this is the most unconventional video game of all time because it's a film production, and so like for me it was so exciting because it's like it with Noclip it is a video shoot, it's a film shoot, and working with actors, and it's like oh this is so different and refreshing because like I was even talking to actors as they were coming up where it's like this is exciting for us because normally with I've done like corporate shoots too, where it's like, yeah, you're in office buildings with people who aren't used to being camera ready or might be really shy or nervous.
Yeah.
These are people whose job it is every day to like audition, and they have to come dressing really sharp. Like they were, all the actors were doing makeup and stuff, and it's like, oh man, everyone's ready to perform, and everyone's so camera ready. Sorry, there's a phone going off. My bad.
No worries. Do it. Frank's a busy man. He's got
business
appointments.
calls coming in.
He's recording 2 podcasts.
Yeah, he's got to go to his other podcast. They're like, Frank, what do you think about this game?
Yeah.
Who was it? Was it a robocall or was it someone trying to get in the gate?
Yeah. Jeez.
Frank, let me in.
Was it Men on Gage?
No, yeah. So it was cool. Like for me, because I used to go up to LA all the time. Like a decade ago, it was like, oh shoot, like this is what it's like being in LA, and it was fun talking to actors and like reminiscing because they were talking about going to auditions. They were talking about the impending writers' strike, and it's like, it kind of like took me. It kind of like took me back, and I was like, oh, this felt. I felt like I don't know. It was really exciting. And again, the biggest thing is like it felt like these were like cosplayers where it's like, wait a minute, you're the girl from Immortality, but literally you're that. Like it was so surreal because it's like, yeah, video game characters are computer generated and all that, but it's like with Immortality, it's like no, these are the actors. So it's so surreal seeing all of them also in contemporary 2023, where all of them were portraying actors in the 60s and 70s, and it's like. This is so weird. So for me, it was so exciting. It was
the first time we'd done a doc where like we were surrounded by the video game characters.
Yeah.
Like it was such a different vibe. Like to us, like obviously studio, we kind of know some of the people who work. When you're in a room with Cory Barlog or in the room with Ed Boon or like any of these people, like there is also that like gravitas to like the conversation where it's like, oh, I really respect this person and like I'm interested in what they have to say, but you don't feel like you're like sitting across the room from Kratos or like fucking Sub-Zero. Well, I guess in Ed's case maybe with the voices maybe it is more accurate than that, but like it was such a trip, the whole thing, like sitting across from Harlotta, who plays the one, and like that was she has such an intense like presence, and she's such a sweetheart, and the conversations we got into with all these people were really remarkable because when we talk to we'll often talk to the creative lead of a project, but we'll also talk to audio engineer number 2 or like texture artist, or we often talk to people who we might be the only professional interview they ever do, like you never know, and trying to get them to talk about their work sometimes is difficult as well because a lot of their jobs are technical perhaps, whereas like the art of acting is so intrinsically personal that they're already like 5 levels deep into like how personal they can get with the questions, so you can just keep going. And like we I feel like the conversations with Harlotta and Manon in particular, we talked about like, we'll have something, we're going to talk to the intimacy coordinator as well. And we talked a little bit about that and what that process looks like when they're getting into scenes that have, a lot of physicality or sexual content in them. But I think one of the things that, and I talked a lot to Manon about like the process of like, trying to understand, and I don't have the words for any of this. It's kind of outside my wheelhouse, but like I was trying to ask her about what is it actually like in your head when you're approaching a scene? Like, what is it? What do you actually do? Like, what did you learn in Juilliard? What, is every actor's process different? Like, what are you doing in that moment? Where are you taking the emotions from or all that, and she was so able to talk about it, but probably because she's like just incredibly well trained from Juilliard and obviously takes the work really seriously. But then it was really fun talking to Harlotta about like how your outward appearance dictates so much of your career, and how like she was getting cast as like alien and vampire and like all of these like sort of dark characters, and how that's like kind of like fucked. Like how do you love a career when you're constantly being asked to be this like, this scary thing, you know what I mean? And like how she used that in the role and the performance, and it was so cool, man. They were like, I don't know about you, Jeremy, if we were listening, but like I could have sat and talked to them all day about that shit. They were so open about it, and like I think it's going to be a really interesting look at like what we kind of approached it. We talked in pre-production about approaching this one different in the way that it's actors, but like otherwise just really like normally like we do other docs where we're talking about process and how you got here and what it's like in the work and how difficult is it and all that sort of stuff. But I was blown back by how just open and cool they were about the whole thing.
Yeah, I like it was so interesting because it had a similar kind of flavor to talking to devs, because they're all creative people and they're people who like their art is their livelihood, but it's also their passion. It's what they live and breathe and presumably what they think about most of the time. But I feel like there was something different about it, because when you're like if you're like a filmmaker, like a camera operator, like a more technical thing, or like a game dev, there is that like hardware technical aspect to it. But something about acting, like, and actors, the way that they are like shaped by that, the fact that their tool that they use in their art form is them, like their persona and the ability to like inhabit the mind of different characters and things like that. It's just I don't know. The way they talk about the creative process and about creativity in general was very refreshing, because I feel like I feel that some people kind of shy away from talking about creative process because it can feel pretentious to talk too much about art and art theory and different things like that. I feel like they were so open and so genuine about it that it was just really refreshing. I don't know. There was something maybe I just miss being around actors because I haven't been in film school in like a decade or something. But yeah, I don't know. And the other thing I noticed was there's this thing when you're the camera guy on a set, like, in all our shoots we're very much like partners. We talk a ton in pre-production about how the interviews are going to go and stuff, and you weigh in on how the shots should look. There's like this intermingling of our talents and stuff. But I think it's easy for people when we're in the moment to just be like, oh, that's the camera guy and this is the guy I'm talking to. But when Manon and Charlotta were leaving, they both came up to me and shook my hand and were like, this was so great and we're so excited. And I don't know, they were just very giving and very conscious of every person and every part of the process, and so respectful of everyone's diverse talents. And yeah, I don't know, I like being around creative people, and they were all just like living and breathing that creativity so much. You could tell how much it's not just a job for them. It's really something that means a lot to them.
Yeah, and it made it production-wise, it made everything so easy, because whenever they turned up, they were ready. Yeah, and whenever they were always kind of conscious of the camera being on and being okay with it, and being like, when Frank was shooting a bunch of B-roll, for instance, and they were like, if you'd done that with developers, it would have been weird, right? To like have a camera in the room, or like sometimes we do that and people all look and they're, whereas they were just like acting as if it wasn't there the entire time. And was that the case, Frank? Did you find like when you were pointing that thing around?
Yeah, it was like, I feel like it's the same thing like when I go to like conventions where it's like I introduce myself like, hi, I'm Frank and whatever, and then it's like, oh, once we're kind of acclimated, it's like I can just have the camera rolling, people are cool with it. But like they were so friendly. They would like, yeah, I don't know, it's it's also weird too, because when I shoot I kind of like disappear where I'm just like so focused in it. But it's like, yeah, they were so friendly, they were so kind. You're right, Jeremy was saying, but like they shook everyone's hands and were so like sweet. And I think the ethos of this, like Immortality is such a like indie creative amazing project too, that they really understand like the passion behind it. And so they were so passionate that it kind of like refilled my heart. It was like, oh man, like I don't know, it was really inspiring. And so like, and it was surreal. Like again, like I spent so much time in front of the computer controlling the camera for like video game stuff that it was like, wait, I'm on a real film shoot with these characters, and I get to I don't know, like walk around and shoot stuff. So it's cool. So
yeah, I guess if you're, because I didn't film anything, so
yeah,
that's a good point. Like you got to like you were playing the like prequel to Immortality.
You were playing
where you were, like,
photo mode in Immortality.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
You're right, because it's like
Photo
because
mode.
so much of Immortality is the behind the scenes where they break character. They're still themselves. So it was like, this feels like bonus content for Immortality. The like,
Yeah,
I don't know,
totally.
The game is still going, man. We're all in the game.
yeah.
I also got a really good sense of like the type, because like, you know, we talk about who are actors who are like beautiful and like, you know, take care of themselves and all that sort of stuff. But also I got a really good sense of like the type of beauty that like striking features and angles and stuff, and how critical that is, you know, because I was looking at your B-roll and going like, oh, I totally seen, you know, how like certain faces and how certain looks, and I guess fashion is part of that too, creating those angles and that depth to it, you know what I mean? Where like that's where like an interest, like my sort of like potato pudding face wouldn't really work as like an actor, because like I lack the sort of like, you know, the Adrian Brody style angles, or like the whoever it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the dude who plays Durik was so like classically handsome, and it's funny because in the game he looks older, even though it was shot 2 years ago. Like he's got the big glasses on and stuff, and he looks
100%,
tired, which also, you know, shooting a movie is exhausting.
He's so like he's so like a director in the game where he is not really interested in, he's not that charismatic, and in real life the guy's a barman and like super charismatic.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
His story was really interesting. Obviously this will end up in the doc or whatever.
You can
The fact that he said he was sort of sensitive as a young person and grew up in the Sacramento area, and that sensitivity was kind of pushed back against by the cultural context in which he grew up in, and, you know, kind of like toughen up and don't be like a pussy or whatever. And and it was so interesting because when you talk to him, you get the sense that he has sort of come through that, and that acting has, I mean, he talked about this, like finding your inner child as part of the creative process, but it was
stripping it out.
Totally.
Like,
but it was so fascinating because I feel like that his ability to be really good in the role of Durik, I won't talk about why, but if you've played Immortality, you know who Durik is and kind of the role he plays. But the sort of oppressive, sort of conservative, repressed masculinity that he brings to that role, it feels so authentic. And I was like, oh, holy shit, that's like his dad or his sports coach or someone who made him repress his inner child. And he's, you know, I mean, that's kind of the beautiful thing about acting, is the fact that because you're bringing your experiences and personality to bear in such an authentic way, when you're acting well, at least, you get to like, it's almost autobiographical or something. And so hearing these people talk about their experiences and their stories and stuff, and like Charlotta talking about being sort of, you know, in more demonic roles or scary roles and having to embrace that role, it's just so fascinating. I don't know, there's something so psychologically interesting about acting. Even like I have no interest in acting myself, but it's just from a psychology perspective, the way that these people are able to inhabit these roles, and the way they talked about how when you're acting these things out, especially things that are more traumatic or intense, your body doesn't know that it's fake or something. So
yeah, Manon said that.
Yeah,
I remember.
exactly.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
So being like held underwater, or having a gun pointed at you, or being like, you know,
or crying a lot, or
totally. So it's really interesting. I don't know. I'm constantly flabbergasted by the way that actors are able to inhabit these different psychological states and bring them to bear, and kind of just like capture human emotion in that way that feels real.
I watch a lot of like I sort of, this is where a lot of Noclip came from, is like I watched a lot of, like, I think we all did, like behind the scenes documentaries on movies and stuff when they used to do that a lot. And over the past few years, I really enjoy, like, some of my favorite YouTube channels are like, you know, GQ and Wired and ones when they do like actor sit down things, you know what I mean? Or even like you know, Hot Ones, you know what I mean? Just like hearing about a process and where people came from and all that sort of stuff, I found really interesting. And I feel like we have that and more in this, like the amount of like depth we got into it. I think if you've played the game, you'll really, really like this. And I think if you haven't played the game, I think there's going to be so much, I think it'll make you play the game. Like there's so much about the detail that went into it. Like at the end of the day, we talked to the production designer and the costume designer, and they were fascinating, and just talking about how much work goes into it and breaking down sets. And some, you know, the actors talking about, we had like 2 takes for a lot of this. Like we just had to keep going. The script was 450 pages long. Hearing that they have full scripts for all 3 movies, I did not know that.
It was like 407 pages or something.
That was for the game one.
Oh, that was just for the. Oh, okay.
That was just for the game.
Okay.
So if they had the one that was the entire full movies, apparently that's even more, which is crazy. I know it's like 150 pages is what a general movie script is, but I think they had, because there was so much non-movie film in the game that wasn't in that core whatever. Maybe that was 450 again, or that like that's insane, and that like they did that because they needed to know what the story was and what the character was, even if it wasn't going to be in the game. Like, how much work is this? It's
insane, but
absolutely
it shines
insane.
through in the game. I really do feel. I feel like there's a.
They feel like real movies. You said that last year.
Yeah, totally.
Like, when we did Game of the Year.
I mean, that's why the game works. If they felt like they were movies that were filmed for a game, this would have felt like a corny FMV game. But the fact that it really, I mean, I forgot I was playing a game that wasn't about real movies at times when I was playing Immortality. It really feels like you're digging through old footage of these old movies that never existed.
And they even said because of like SAG stuff and like other reasons, like they had to break up production into like 3 different movies, which also might have something to do with the fact that there are 4 IMDb stubs. There's one for Immortality, and then there's one for Two of Everything, Ambrosio and Minsky as well, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
Because I guess the screenwriters, those are scripts that exist, and those are movies that were shot.
Yeah, and the dialogue has to be good in them too. I mean, a lot of them talked about how when they initially got the script, they were blown away by the quality of the writing, which I'm sure, as an actor, I'm sure there's a little bit of not like hesitation, but just like caution getting into a project that's sort of like transmedia. That's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you want to be in movies and TV shows, and someone's like, "What about a video game?" And instantly you're thinking of like Tim Curry in Command and Conquer. And you're like, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, although spice.
I mean, that's a bad example because that rocks.
Holy shit! Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun day.
Yeah,
it was really good. It was also like fun because there's always this hint of like, since COVID started, there's always this hint of just like, I feel a bit uncomfortable about this. And there was something about that room and the space and the, like, we were wearing masks and stuff, but like there was an outdoor space. This room was fucking huge. I don't know. I felt like it was the first time being surrounded by lots of people that I felt like I wasn't 100% of the time worried about COVID, which I think was quite nice as well.
Yeah, it was awesome. The only other thing that I wanted to highlight was we got to look through some of the reference images for the character designs, and I got a bunch of shots of them. That stuff is so fascinating to me, and the fact that it was just this big binder. I don't know. It was.
Bible.
I felt like I was. I mean, like they often refer to them as like story Bibles and like reference Bibles and stuff. So it was. I felt like I was holding like the Dead Sea Scrolls or something, and then flipping through them and seeing the drawing of one of the iconic dresses from the game, like from one of the movies, and then it had like a little fabric swatch, and there was like a couple different variations on it, but also shots of like Brigitte Bardot for reference from Marissa Marcel, and all the different time periods and the way that the clothes have to reflect that. That's why I'm glad we got to talk to costume and production, because those are roles that are often underrepresented in this sort of behind the scenes looks, and especially for Immortality, that's so pivotal. Like, to sell I mean, you could have the best actors in the world, and if you don't have the right sets and the right color grading and the right like artificial post-processing and stuff, you can't sell it as a 70s movie. It'll just look like a 2023 interpretation of that time period.
Right.
So yeah, it was cool. I feel like there's a world in which we did this and just talked to the actors, and it would have been great. But this feels like we got to do a very comprehensive, and there's obviously a few more remote interviews we want to do, because this is it's worth doing well. This is like a really cool project.
It is, yeah. There's something about this which is funny as well, where it feels like we're making one of those Blu-ray or DVD behind the scenes things, because this is a legitimate movie thing that we're doing it on. And like, it's funny because I do think Immortality has a relatively limited audience. I think some people, probably most people who are listening to this haven't played it. A decent amount of people have played it, and a lot of people really like it. Like, it's definitely one of these sort of cult classics as well. Although it's come out on a bunch of platforms, so it's out on it's out on Mac now as well, but PC, console, it's out on Netflix. You play it on your tablet, like it's on everything. So maybe Steam reviews aren't a great gauge for how much it's sold or how much exposure it's had. But it does feel like one that like we're never going to get to do another one like this for a while. So I really want to make sure that we do it right. And also, I think it's a game that people will go back to for years and years and years. And it's one that, like, I think my main motivation for it was, aside from just liking the game, was so much of our audience are people who work in development or who would like to. And I think there's a lot of learnings from this that most people would be quite intimidated to do this unless they knew how film worked. And I think having a tome that is kind of like, all right, this is how they did it. Like, it was hard and it was expensive and it did take a man of, like, very competent people who work on a lot of different shows. But this is how they did it. Like, this is how they cast it. This is how they set up the scripts, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're going to talk to Natalie Watson, of course, friend of Noclip. We know her well from Waypoint and all that good stuff. She was producer on this project. She basically helped organize all the interviews. I've been talking to Natalie a lot. She was supposed to be there, but she had she had an interesting thing happen where she couldn't make it, let's say. It seems like she was having fun though, so we're hoping to circle back to her. We're going to talk to the DP as well, the director of photography, I think the audio editor, and then we'll see if and the intimacy coordinator as well. And then we'll see about Sam, because we did interview him for the podcast, so there might be enough meat on the bone there without having to go back and ask him to do it all over again. But yeah, should be a cool talk. I'm interested in Jeremy's editing this one. I'm going to pass the footage off to you. I'm interested in how you tackle it, because in a way it might be, it'll be hard in some spots because there's going to be specifics, but you're cutting between A-roll and B-roll, which is very similar.
Yeah.
So like, and also they're actors, so I feel like you can probably sit on them longer in the A-roll and just let them speak, because they are sort of filming.
Yeah, they have good screen
you know what I mean?
presence. Which is like a
no
passive
offense to
quality.
all of our,
Yeah.
all of our amazing gameplay designers out there and combat designers
Yeah.
who we've interviewed over the years, but yeah, they do have, and also the fucking sets.
Yeah, true.
That they're in.
Yeah,
are pretty
I'm
cool.
excited to let things play out a little more. I think that because of all of those things that you mentioned, I think there's a world in which you can just sit and watch one of these people talk for 45 seconds in an unbroken shot in a way that that you can't do when it's, someone who's not typically on camera and is kind of nervous about it and is in a conference room, and like all of these different factors.
And what you said before, which is that they're often talking about a technical tool
Yes.
that is not themselves, where they're talking about themselves.
It's so personal.
So it's like, just stay with them. Yeah.
The last thing I want to say about why I think this is important and why Immortality is important is that one of the reason I have been learning game dev, and the reason that games are more exciting to me now than when I was younger, which is a funny thing to say as someone who really loved games when they were younger, is that I feel like games are it's such a young medium, and so I feel like we're sort of in the 1950s of film, but for video games.
Right.
And so to see something like Immortality come along is sort of expanding what a video game can be. And it's not because, Sam Barlow's other games, they're not entirely dissimilar in terms of presentation style or whatever, like Her Story and Telling Lies, but I feel like
Silent Hill games are a little bit different.
that's different. I meant the Her Story and Telling Lies specifically, but there's a way in which Immortality pushes games into like it creates this like brackish water where cinema and games meet in a really interesting way that pushes the medium forward into these new unexplored areas. In the same way that I think Disco Elysium is a very literary game, I think Immortality is a very cinematic game, and it's cool to see just like that what games can be. I think that's part of why it's important, is that it's doing something so different that when I was playing it, I was like, holy, I can't believe this exists. Like this is a video game. This is wild.
Yeah, it's funny talking to that came up a lot between them, and also the way in which like people in Hollywood have reacted to this or not. You know what I mean? Does it help their careers or not? There's so much meat on this bone. I'm very excited to do it. And it was a lot of fun hanging out with you guys as well in person and do all that shit. We should do it more often.
Yeah.
Maybe do some more filming around. Hey, look, there's so much cool stuff happening in California as well. It's so easy to just get out there and do it. A lot of fun. Very cool. Hey, shout out to our Battle Pass holders.
A little late, but
Couldn't wait to talk about Immortality. James Brown, Jason Drury, Ryan Cobb, Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclists, Sven Huster, Aaron L. White, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Andy Fegan, Eric Hamilton Schneider,
Cameron
Lad, George Chakotis, Jacob Godservant, Tohir Tiliev. Thank you all so much. We've got some interesting shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
It's when you grin.
So you grin because of shenanigans.
Because of shenanigans, yeah. We're going to have some interesting shenanigans happening to the Noclip Patreon next month. We'll have some There's a lot of interesting shenanigans going on here. I don't know about you, but can I show you this tape? What did this tape say? Microsoft press conference 2009. Look at that shit. If you're watching the video version of this, if you don't know about our weird tape project, I don't know how much. I can never tell how much we've said on the podcast. We've shown stuff off on the Patreon show, but we're getting ready to show off some stuff and maybe do something a little bit weird around E3 as well. Well, E3 is dead, but there's a lot of E3 in the halls of the Noclip studio, hidden on these tapes in beautiful Source 1080i, which is not what's on the internet right now. I don't want to alarm anyone, but if you want a super high res version of the is it Kudo Shinoda? Is that his name? I always forget. What the bottom of the Avatar shoe looks like guy. I was just recording it on this little Atmos Ninja a few minutes ago, so we're working on some fucking weird stuff over here. And next month we'll be announcing it and also announcing some changes to the Patreon, which are very exciting. And just in general, the way we're approaching community and everything. Frank is taking on a sort of bigger role over here, helping me out with a bunch of that. We're doing more interesting Patreon stuff, exclusive for patrons, and doing more. We've really enjoyed doing crew and just basically like taking hold of that and doing more stuff that's tied to our docs on there. More behind the scenes stuff, and also just more outreach over Discord, doing like town halls and stuff on Reddit. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff we're excited to talk about very, very soon. Some of it we've already talked about on the Patreon show, but yeah, next month's going to be interesting. Next month is probably the single biggest change that's happened to our Patreon. No, it definitely is. It's like the biggest thing that sort of is fundamentally changing how our Patreon works. In the almost 7 years since we started this thing in August 06. 06? August 16.
When I was still in high school.
Fucking hell. Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not sure crowdfunding was all that hot in 06, maybe. We got some time to talk about some video games here, though. God, this is a weird list of video games, as ever. Frank, which one do you want to talk about more? Resident Evil 4 or what the fuck is this? Is this anime or is this a game? Goddess of Victory Nikke?
This is fake.
No, this is real. So last week I saw Air, the new Ben Affleck film about the signing of Michael Jordan to promote Nike shoe
This
wear.
is not how you got to this video game.
So in the film, Matt Dave, I forget. Someone's like, "What does Nike mean?" Oh, it means the goddess of victory. That's what Nike is. So I've been in a mood to play Call.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really what
is.
Nike
That movie
is.
good, by the way? I hated the trailer.
It's awesome.
It is.
I love
Really?
it. Although someone on Letterboxd called it Sorkin exploitation, and I do agree. Like it's very much like Moneyball. It's
don't fucking talk to me about Moneyball. Fucking Oakland
hate it or
A's.
love it.
Oakland A's going to Vegas. They announced they bought the land this morning. Fucking scumbags.
Damn.
Oh, really? They're moving out.
They're moving. It's official. I mean, the writing's been on the wall for years. But as an A's fan and a frequent journeyman to the Oakland Coliseum, me and 500 other people, it seems like, for the past couple of years, because the GM has basically been, or the owner has been basically just letting the franchise die for the past few years, selling off all the players and like acting in bad faith, trying to get Oakland to pay for that new stadium. So they got Vegas to pay for it. I think it's like $750 million of taxpayers' money is going to go to building this stadium. But it's like habitual. It's like the English again. It's like it's like colonialism with Ireland again. It's like steal all the sports. This is a bad analogy. I need to back out of this analogy immediately.
I love this analogy.
But like, come on, like, hey, Golden Knights, do your thing. That's a new franchise, right? I think so. I don't know. They're not from Oakland. Fucking Raiders. I guess Raiders has been the sort of like, village bicycle of West Coast sports because they went to LA and came back and all that sort of shit. But now they stole them from Oakland. They're taking the A's. The A's. So California makes 50% of all the baseball players in the MLB, I'm pretty sure. It's probably California and Mexico and Japan, I'd say. Probably half
the Dominican
best
Republic.
Players. And you're right, exactly. Yeah, sorry.
And Japan.
And Japan, yeah, exactly. I mean, Ichiro on his own,
Yeah.
I feel like, is worth like 500 American players. Now it's getting into like weird, like...
They're commodifying him.
The commodifying race a little bit, yeah. I'm like a race traitor when it comes to
Oh my
baseball.
God, dude.
Anyway, sorry. Tell me about Nike, Frank.
You would like the Air movie because it's Matt Damon just going through VHS tapes the whole movie, like trying to find the next big player, Michael Jordan.
Like Jonah Hill was, like
Yeah, but it rules. But anyways, there was a new Call of Duty update. I still have yet to play any maps because I've been so hooked on Genshin Impact. It really has like numbed me on video games. It's just like, yeah, dude, like I can go into an hour of Genshin, collect flowers, shoot arrows. I don't know what the hell you do in that game. But I like Genshin. But someone suggested to me Goddess of Victory, Nikke. And this is basically like an anime Call of Duty filled with, you have robot girl. You're a commander, and you have robot soldiers, and they shoot stuff in the game. And when they shoot, they're constantly jiggling. And it is the most obscene game I've ever played. It's not even on Steam, but it's free to play. You can download it, and it's also a gacha game. But it's like it feels like Time Crisis or Gears of War, where you have a cover system and you pull out to click on shoot stuff. It is the most like baby brain game to play.
What
you just click
fuck?
stuff.
I have been clicking through this gameplay video and I still have no idea what this game
same.
is. There's like an overworld map as well.
Yes, it looks very chibi, like Advance Wars. So you and your squad of robot girls go around. You go up to a battlefield. And then it's like the Terminator Wars. You're shooting stuff and blowing stuff up, but then you're also leveling up the robot girls, giving them presents. It's the same thing as Genshin Impact, but it's like anime and guns, and it's so ridiculous.
But also,
like,
it looks like a cover shooter.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
so in those moments, are you literally controlling? It looks like you're controlling all of them at the same time, but you're controlling the movement of one character, and the rest of them are like copying that character.
So it's almost like a team. Like it's like you have 5 different people you can use. It's again kind of like Genshin because you're constantly swapping the characters. So you have one character at a time. I think it's like even Call of Duty. You click right click to pull out. You shoot the stuff. Once you've kind of burned your mana, your special ability with that character, you can switch around to another character. You can pop all your ultimates, and they have an obscene, insane cutscenes. But it's like it's just so ludicrous. And it's very simple, and I like it. And obviously, there's visual elements of why I really like this game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What would
Dude,
those be?
I've never played a game where it's
Where there hasn't been jiggling. Is that what you're gonna say?
No, maybe, but it's so funny to pull out of cover and you're shooting, and the girl's ass is just out there, and it's shaking so insane, and it's like this is amazing. This is amazing. This is what video gaming can be all about.
These characters are incredibly well designed.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yes,
like
they
so
are.
The look of these is like there's like this Diablo lady with like a scythe, and then there's this Raiden looking girl who has this incredibly large hat.
That's not
Like,
what I thought you were
like
going to
also-
say.
No, sorry. Yeah, every time he said pull out, I was also my brain space is in a different. It's weird because it's weird how like I know what you're saying about the okay. Yeah. It's I think okay, this is where I'm coming from. I'm not a prude, okay? I'm not a prude. But like I come from a generation where you had normal God, that's such a prude thing to say.
All right, Dad.
Traditional back in my day where you have just video games that don't have these types of like sexual imagery or sexualized imagery in them, and then you had straight up porn games or like stuff like Lula Virtual Babe, right? So it's weird to see what looks like a sort of like a role playing shooter have just like 6% explicit stuff, but that 6% is like a pure refined like fucking you need to dilute it down 6%.
Yeah, it's like just horny enough to like trick your brain into being more interested in it without being horny enough that you're like, I'm doing something pornographic. You know what I mean? Like just the little extra dopamine is shooting out of your little brain valves, but you're not like, this is pretty innocent actually. This is fine.
Yeah, it's like sort of like 90s or like early aughts like pop where like the songs were, it's all about the songs and the image of but then also like, all of these Christina Aguilera videos are fairly suggestive.
This is the
you know
Shakira
what I mean?
of gacha games.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's not the reason it's not all of it, but it's definitely it's a part of the flavor or whatever. God, it's such a bizarre thing. Where'd you get it? Did you have to like?
It's free.
Is this one of those games where you go and they're like, you won't be able to stop playing this? You won't be able to last 15 seconds in this game. Is that one of these games?
No, it's not. No. I don't even know the website you pull it up on. I mean, it feels like one of those.
Nike-en.com.
Yeah.
And that's
Nike.
2 Ks. Nikke-en.com.
It's on the Apple App Store as well, it appears.
Yeah. Goddess of Victory Nike by Level Infinite is the publisher. Shift Up. But I don't know. It's interesting just playing one Genshin game, Gacha game, Genshin Impact, seeing the other genre and seeing what tricks they all play, and it's like, this is, I don't know, it's insane. I'm happy to report on it, let you know, people know this is out there, because this has not flown on my radar until this week.
Well, and this Twitter account associated with it has 250,000 followers, and I've never heard of this game before, and yeah. The mainstream press just silencing.
Dude, yeah, Goddess of Victory Nike. I think I don't know if I followed Genshin Impact. I don't know if I started following them on Twitter yet.
It reminds me a little bit of like Time Crisis or like House of the Dead or something too.
It's that.
It's like House of the Dead or Alive is what this is. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's the combination.
I feel like Aura Hack could be doing a bunch of these characters and I wouldn't have known.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean? I feel like that's exactly down her way. Friend of Noclip.
Friend of the show.
Did some awesome art for work for us as
True.
well. She's done in the past, yeah. I think I was talking to her about doing some like printouts of some of that sort of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Final Fantasy art work we got done donkeys years ago at this stage. My goodness. Speaking of donkeys, it did work. Tchia, that game I can't pronounce properly. I think there's donkeys in that game. Remember I was telling you about that game? It's the little lady. God, I'm so bad at talking about video games. The little girl on the South Pacific island, the like New Caledonian inspired sort of Zelda-like. I love this game.
Yeah?
I am 100% in like I can't put this down mode. You know, where I'm just like, I just gotta find one more of these big tasty fruits so I can make my stats go up, or I need to find one more of these little trinkets so I can sell them or get more. You get trophies. I don't think I talked about this last time. You get trophies for doing stuff in the game. There's like races sometimes. There's like these diving board parts, which I love because like you can tell that like I bet in New Caledonian culture people go like jumping off rocks into pools a lot. You know what I mean? Like in Ireland we jump off there's like special places, like there's a place in my hometown in Waterford called the Metal Man, which is like a rock that you jump off into the ocean and people know that it's deep enough there, right? And it's got this history associated with it. So if you do that you get trophies, and the trophies literally go in your inventory, and they're physical trophies to the point where if your inventory is full and you like do the jump and you get a trophy, it just like spawns out of you into the water, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta get this trophy I just dropped. But then you can go to, this was the tangent I should have used. You go to like a gotcha, like a claw machine thing, and you like take the trophy out of your inventory and like throw it into that, and you get like credits to like pick up more trophies or pick up like costume stuff basically. So I've been doing a lot of that as well. It's a lot of fun. It's a great little game.
What's the sort of like, I've seen a bunch of footage of the game, so I understand kind of how it plays on a moment-to-moment level, but what's the sort of longitudinal arc of the game?
So the main quest is that you're doing, you're trying to get your dad out of this like fortress kind of thing, and then to do that, it's a lot of like fetch quests. And they try and make them as interesting as possible. So like to get him out, right, to get like a meeting with this guy at the first quest you do, you have to get like a certain number of items. But to get those, you have to go do some help for these 2 villages. So you go to the villages, and then, there's a whole thing in I think I'm assuming it's in New Caledonian culture when you meet somebody for the first time, or if you're staying over or having like meeting them for like a lunch situation, they give you like a sort of a wrapped gift, as it were, of the food. They present it to you, and you present them with a sort of a likewise gift, maybe some things from your town or something like that. So like one of the first quests you do to meet like the chief of this village is to just go, it says find 3 pearls. And like if you don't know where to find pearls, fucking good luck. Like that's what I like about the game. A lot of it is like you got to figure stuff out. So the pearls are located in clams under the water, but they're only in certain spots. And if you go to the top of a hill and do an Assassin's Creed style, like look at everything, it'll tell you where stuff is on the map in that area. But like I said last week, the mini map in the game doesn't show your location. So you have to like, if you go up to a signpost and press a button, it'll tell you which signpost you're on, but like it doesn't tell you your location all the time. So the moment to moment is kind of, is a lot of like, it's a lot of traversal. And then the quests are kind of associated with like, almost hunter-gathering kind of stuff, you know? Like sometimes you have to get what did I have to do? Oh, I had to get an egg. And I couldn't figure out where to get the egg. And then I was like, oh, I'll possess a chicken. And then I did, and I pressed a button, and an egg came out. And I was like, oh, that's how you get an egg. You know what I mean? I think that's how you do it anyway. Spoilers. Yeah. It's like the second quest in the game, I think. But yeah, it's stuff like, yeah, it's weirdly like, it's not an immersive sim, but it definitely, I would say, even goes further than, say, Breath of the Wild does in terms of like, you got to kind of imagine you're here, like think of lateral thinking, that type of thing.
That's cool. I really like I feel like the approximate map thing is a really good example of that. It makes me think of Firewatch, where I feel like the conversation around playing Firewatch was, do you use the map or do you play without the map? Or is it, no, it's maybe the indicator on the map. It's been a while since I played Firewatch. But you're checking the map, and then you're kind of having to check in and be like, all right, if I go straight ahead and then left and there's a turn or something. But playing that way gets, it's a little frustrating sometimes. Like the risk reward sort of ratio on how much it immerses you versus how much it frustrates you is kind of off kilter sometimes. So I ended up using the map indicator anyway by the end of Firewatch. But it sounds like being able to check in and have your character be like, oh, I must be in this region of the world. It immerses you enough that you can kind of get reference points and then figure it out.
Yeah, there's a couple of like good ripcords as well for if you're lost. Whereas Firewatch, one of the problems was it compounded the issue you're talking about, was that you just walked around quite slow. Yeah. Whereas in this one, like sometimes if you're like if you're on a mountain and you want to get down, jump off the mountain and use your glider, or possess a rock if you want to travel places. Just possess a big boulder and just fucking jump through the world, blah, blah, up a hill, down a hill, across whatever. If you want to climb a mountain, go look for a bird. Like become a pigeon and just go whoop, 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 and fly up as fast as you can before your sort of possession juice runs out. So there's lots of ways, but I like how hands off the game is. They do not overly explain stuff to you, and sometimes that can lead to like being a little bit lost. But I think I have enjoyed. It's been worth it. Like those rough edges are worth it for the sort of open freedom. If it was just like go here, do that, I'd be a bit more bored. I'm liking, at least at the moment, how open it is. We'll see how like after 4 or 5 hours, or I've definitely played that long, I don't know, after 10 hours maybe I've figured everything out and it's not as interesting anymore. But yeah, enjoying it so far.
It's shocking how much just making traversal fun in a game can sell me. Like a fetch quest in a game where it's not fun to move around feels like a fetch quest, but a fetch quest in a game where it's really fun to move around feels like just fun structure for you to enjoy the traversal. A short hike is a really good example. A short hike is one of my favorite games of the last 10 years, probably. And it's just like just flying around. It's not that there's a million mechanics to do or anything. It's just that the flying around is here's a set of tools. They're all really fun to play with, and now go out into this sort of tiny world and play with them and find. And it's also the lack of structure in that one. It kind of is non-linear. It just gives you this whole world to play in. So I feel like Tchia or Tchia, or we haven't landed on a proper pronunciation.
Tchia, maybe. The dev said I've pronounced it wrong literally every time. So
that's impressive.
Maybe it's Tchia.
Tchia?
Tchia? Yeah. Tchia?
One of those has to be right.
Tchia.
Great little game.
There's Tchia Pets. I don't know.
Tchia Pets. Yeah. Should have known you'd go there. Frank, this also reminds me of a game that you captured for us quite a while ago. There are elements of this game that you kind of need to use certain animals to complete certain quests, and it reminded me of Space Station Silicon Valley, which was in our DMA documentary. Which did you capture gameplay for that one? I can't remember.
No, I didn't touch Space Station Silicon.
I love that game.
I got a copy of it. Yeah, weird little game.
Little pigs that like poop out little mines and stuff. It's a really strange game. I loved that game as a kid.
N64, yeah, man, they made some weird games. Resident Evil 4. Frank, how are you enjoying the remake? I am still stuck in that village at the start because I played it one night and forgot that you just have to run away from the guy with the chainsaw. Don't try and kill him. You can't. Can you actually kill him?
You can kill him, and you get a lot of loot. I think I killed him. Yeah, I did kill him this time because you can get the shotgun in that first village. Spam grenades. Just focus on him. Eventually, the granadas or whatever, the zombies will run away. No, it's an awesome game, but I have to put it down every like 30 minutes or an hour because every session is so intense.
Yeah, that game does not let up.
And like. Playing it, they've adapted it to where everything is so dark and grisly, and I feel like the GameCube version was like very bright and kind of silly, or just the art style back then was a little bit more cartoony or like lighter maybe. The new one is like, it feels like, like Demon Souls again, where it's just like, oh, this is so dark and scary. Like the castle now, it's like, dude, this is terrifying.
Oh,
this
really?
is like, whereas the castle in the GameCube version was very bright, I feel. And maybe I'm still getting out, and like there's enough, the art direction and stuff is kind of like refined where it's like there are some things that are different and new to this game, stuff that's similar, but it's like it kind of feels like a dream where it's like, I remember being in high school. What is this like? Like, I don't know. It's but it's very very good. They also added mercenaries mode, so if you just want to practice the combat,
cool.
It was a free update, and that's pretty fun. But yeah, it's good. And I feel like I'm halfway through it. Working with Ashley this time isn't as frustrating.
Right.
You don't have to like manage her health. If she gets knocked down, you just pick her up again. So there was a part in the castle where I was stuck, where all of the trebuchets were firing the molten boulders at you.
Yeah, gosh.
I had to do that part like 30 minutes back to back to back because like either I would get hit or Ashley would get hit, and it was like, so it was tough. But
there is like an easier mode. Is it assisted mode? They
casual
call it?
mode, or because there's maybe it's assisted, standard, hardcore, professional. So I'm playing on the normal, but you can bump it down at any point.
You're not a professional.
And that might be easier. Yeah, I've yet to do it. Like every time these remakes come out, like I did it with 3, where I played it once on normal, had fun. I played it again on like easy to like get all the collectibles and max out, and then once everything was like maxed out, or I forget, then you start a hard mode and try for it. But yeah, once you go through it once, it's much easier because you know where the scares are, you know what's coming. The game again, maybe like I compare it to Bloodborne, where it rewards you playing aggressively because the more people you kill, the more ammo drops. Like if you can stun them, melee them, like if you're confident in the game, it's quite easier. It's the illusion of horror and stuff that freezes you.
Right.
Fear is the mind killer. So yeah.
Man, all right, Resi 4. Yeah, it does feel like one of those games that's going to take like months for me to get through. I just want to watch Jeremy play Resident Evil Village. That's all I want to do.
I know. I played a little bit of my girlfriend is visiting, and she brought Resident Evil 7, so we played a little bit of it at some point. But I want to play 7.
7's the one before Village, isn't
yeah,
it?
exactly.
Villages,
I feel like I need to play 7 before I do 8.
I thought that too, and then I didn't, and I felt because I played enough of 7 or a bit of 7, I forget. They're very different. It's like watching Death Proof before watching, what was the other movie?
Grindhouse?
Rodriguez and Grindhouse, yeah, whatever.
Planet Terror.
Planet Terror, yeah. It's like they're kind of like good accompany pieces, but you don't, there's not too much crossover really, except Ethan, the fucking lunatic.
My first Resident Evil was Resident Evil 2.
Oh wow,
like,
That's
a
lot of people's that was, yeah.
Yeah, because I remember hearing like, oh, we should try this game. It's at Blockbuster. What the hell? And it was 8, and it was terrifying. And then like that year, I asked for Resident Evil 1, and at that point it was on the greatest hits collection. So like, which was 20. So it was like,
that fucking dude on the front with the gun. Yeah,
I came so late to Resident Evil because I feel like this is weird to say because I was such a big Resident Evil fan as a kid, and I've mentioned on this podcast in the past that I was on like an RP forum for Resident Evil where people had inventory that they'd have to try. Like, you know how in a forum you have your footer where you put like weird cringe quotes.
You're sig, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're sig. So in the bottom you would have an inventory and you'd have to update it, and people, the mods would call. They'd be like, "You shot a bullet last time, so you gotta do this."
You use that green herb.
Yeah, exactly.
Anymore
so
left.
I was that into Resident Evil that I was RPing on forums and stuff like
Wow.
that. But I truly feel that I was just a Silent Hill fan who never played Silent Hill, because for me, like the bombast and the campiness of Resident Evil is sort of window dressing. But the thing that I really love about Resident Evil is when it's actually dark, like Lisa Trevor in the Resident Evil remake, the moments where it's talking about, like a girl wearing her parents' skin and like wandering around in the basement. Right. Those are the moments that really get to me. And so, yeah,
itchy.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like, I don't know, coming to Silent Hill was like a homecoming where I was like, oh my god, this is kind of what I always wanted. Not Silent Hill Homecoming, which is another game.
Was that a Sam Barlow game?
Is that the one he made?
That one?
Or he made Shattered Memories? I don't know. There's so many.
Didn't he? Shattered Memories and
I'm
something else?
looking it up.
What was your first Resident Evil?
My first Resident Evil was, I had a friend who had Resident Evil 2 on the PS1, but it was something I saw him play at his house one time. 4 is where I really got into it. So I played 4 at my friend's house, and we would go to his house after school and play Mercenaries mode and just try to beat each other's scores.
Cool.
And then one day I went over and he was playing the Resident Evil remake on GameCube. And
who did it? Was not Silicon Knights. It was the other crowd who did it. Sorry,
No,
go
I
on.
have no idea who made it actually. I don't know, just like I think that was my first brush with kind of classic survival horror, and I've just been obsessed with it ever since. There's just something about games where I mean, we talk a lot about like cognitive framing for games and how a game can be kind of slow and prodding and clunky and sort of like not like UX friendly, as long as the atmosphere is there. And so yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Silent Hill was the moment where I was like, oh, this is kind of what I've been looking for all along. I've been looking in Resident Evil trying to find Silent Hill. I just didn't know it or something. But
There was a PlayStation 2 remake, wasn't there?
of
It's really annoying me that I can't remember who made it. It wasn't Silicon Knights. It was the other crowd who did it.
the Resident Evil remake of Resident Evil 1?
Of 4. You said it was 4.
4 was the first one I played. Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, Resident Evil 1 remake.
Resident Evil
Sorry,
1
yes, no,
remake
you're right.
was the one that got me really into like actual survival horror. But 4
And
was
that
the entry.
was that the one on GameCube?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Everyone's screaming at their podcast.
No. Resident Evil 1 remake for GameCube was the game. I played it after the original GameCube Resident Evil 4, but 4 was kind of like, oh, this is fun and arcadey, and then I played the Resident Evil 1 remake, and I was like, oh my god, this is like, I want to, I don't know.
Oh,
It's just like
No,
captivating.
you're right. That was done by Capcom. Who are the folks who made Twin Snakes? That's the thing. Twin Snakes was
It was the
Silicon
Eternal
Knights. It was
Darkness
Silicon
team.
Knights.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Silicon Knights who did. So maybe they didn't. Oh no, did they work on a Resident Evil that got cancelled?
I don't know. There's not a
Fuck, I
there's
don't
not a
know.
Resident Evil on their wiki list of games.
There's not. No, they did Blood Omen, Eternal Darkness, Twin Snakes, and then Two Human, which was the infamous one.
Canceled game includes
Or
Silent Hill: The Box.
No, the box.
I don't know that one.
Was it Gearbox? Did Gearbox? No, that's insane. Don't be insane,
Don't be
Danny.
crazy.
Gearbox did not make a. For some
Steve
reason in my
living
head,
forever.
fucking podcast and noclip.video put me out of my misery.
Just
I'm
put
so
a
sorry.
metaphorical bullet in all our heads and let us know. Silent Hill: The Box was an open world Silent Hill game by Silicon Knights that got canceled. That sounds interesting.
An open world. Aren't all Silent
I
Hill
guess
games
that's-
open
yeah,
worlds?
There was Silent Hill Downpour, which had open world elements. That was like the word, not a good game. I didn't like it.
That's the beauty of Silent Hill. Like any good horror franchise, every good horror franchise has peaks and
Yeah.
valleys. You need them. That's
Yeah, you gotta
part
have
of
the
beauty.
terrible
It's
games.
part of risk
Yeah,
taking.
you can't have that
Yeah, you
middle
gotta-
ground in
gotta-
horror. It's either like terrible schlock or the greatest thing you've ever seen. In fact,
That's
Yeah.
what Star Wars needed to do. Just fucking embrace chaos and just stop making these high budget mediocre movies. Just like go fucking ham and make a bunch of shit and a bunch of I guess they kind of.
I've discovered a new rule that I feel applies primarily to the best horror movies ever, and I invite anyone
Okay.
listening to this to test this rule and try to find other good examples of this. If there is
Okay.
a movie that is incredibly good, and I'll give examples, but it's sort of like presents itself as something slightly different. Hereditary is one of the best examples of this. I think Hereditary is probably the best horror movie of the last maybe 10, 20 years. I absolutely love that movie.
Sure.
If you go to Rotten Tomatoes, the perfect ratio for a movie of that ilk that's kind of like too artsy for mass media audiences, but also like watchable enough for people who aren't into art house, it should
Okay.
be high 80s to 90s on the critic and right around 69 on the audience score is the
Okay,
perfect
69.
ratio. And
If it's too high on the audience, you're saying it's not creative enough.
it's not even that.
if
It's just something about, yeah, I guess maybe creative is a way of putting it. But there's just something, I've tested this rule on a bunch of stuff lately, and a lot of the best movies I've ever seen in my life are that split. There's a lot of John Carpenter
See,
stuff in
and
that range too.
And that might be the issue on the objectivity is that like yeah, I guess good is a good way of doing it, not entertaining, because me and my wife watch a lot of horror
Yeah.
movies, and we watch a lot of like good horror movies, and we watch a lot of absolute dog shit horror movies, but we enjoy it all.
true.
Because it's like dog shit horror is good. It's like McDonald's, man. You just fucking throw that shit
Have
down
you
your
guys ever
throat. It's
seen In
great.
the Mouth of Madness, John Carpenter's movie?
No.
Oh, man.
He's got too many
He
movies.
does have a ton of.
Is that the one with Sam?
Yes,
Sam
it's
Neill?
Sam Neill, and he's it's
Oh my
Oh
God.
yeah, I've seen clips
it's
of
one
this
of only
yeah.
two movies I can think of where the main character is an insurance adjuster who's like a detective, but they work in the insurance business. The other one is the famous Double Indemnity, is like a film noir,
Yeah.
but instead of a hard-boiled detective, he's like, I'm making sure insurance fraud doesn't happen.
Is this before Event Horizon?
Oh God, it must be.
Is that why he got cast in Event Horizon? It is. It was 3 years before Event Horizon.
Yeah, it might be. Sam Neill's the best. I love Sam Neill.
Shit.
Yeah, but
great.
I just watched In the Mouth of
Oh,
Madness.
dude, hates
Highly
kids,
recommend
loves
it.
dinosaurs.
But In the Mouth of Madness is a good example of like incredibly schlocky, but just so much more fun to watch than like movies that are much higher caliber and well made. Just some fun about it.
Love it. Can't go wrong with horror. Bad is good. Boring is bad in horror, but as long as it's weird and trying, then even the worst horror movies are worth a. Without it, we wouldn't have red letter media. Probably there's a lot of very bad horror movies that end up on best of the worst. Let's leave it there, folks. That's a podcast. We're just back from the Immortality shoot, like we said. So settling into that, I think myself and the Age of Empires doc is pretty much done. We're going to get that up for early access people. I think by the time this podcast is live, myself and Frank are going to play some AoE tomorrow, do a little video for Noclip crew where, I don't know, I want to do Celts versus Russians or something.
I'm happy to play Russians.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll go Celts. Get that farming. Fuck you up with my farming.
It's funny, I got really into Age of Empires 4 over quarantine. I liked playing the Russians because whenever I'd click on any of the villagers, it just sounded like my mom. She was like, "Что ты хочешь? Ты хочешь кушать? Что ты хочешь? Дай мне работе."
All the little things the Irish ones say, the Celtic ones say, like they sound like little Irish things as well. Behind it and all this. It's like Simlish, but like it kind of sounds a little bit like, all right, saying Belton or something. It's good shit. So we'll have that. Choo Choo Charles doc as well. Comment down the tracks. Pretty soon, hopefully. We're not going to have. So I'm going to Ireland next week, at the end of next week, for a couple of weeks. I will not have Vampire Survivors done by then. Filming our beautiful puppet has taken. I have an attention to detail with this thing that I need to nail. So we'll get Choo Choo and Age of Empires out over the next couple of weeks, and a bunch of stuff on crew. Especially if you're a patron, check out all the Immortality stuff that's going to land up there as well. Loads to see and do. Keep your eyes peeled for the little Patreon thing we're going to do next month. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. It's going to be interesting for people who aren't patrons. Let's say that. I think that's who people who are patrons are going to be like, huh? People who aren't patrons are going to be like, huh? And maybe somewhere in the middle as well. So it's going to be, it's going to be an interesting sort of little change we're making to the way we're doing all that stuff, and it'll end up also meaning more cool stuff for like we're currently working on a bunch of stuff for patrons that we would never have done otherwise, that we're like, it's like sort of flipping the script a little bit on how we do stuff over there. So I'm very excited for that. Thanks to all of our title sponsors. If you'd like to support the podcast, of course, head over to patreon.com/noclip, and we'll see you next time. Bye.